Welcome back to the boat shed. Today we're taking a look at some of these structural components up here in the cockpit as we make sure that everything is ready to accept these new permateak pads that we made in the last video. We're going to find out if these high moisture readings are going to be a problem. We're going to start rebuilding the sole of the cockpit. For the time being, we're going to store these out of the way just so that nothing gets damaged while we're working on the boat. In case you're new here, my name is John and this boat here is Antidote. Now, I'm not a pro boat builder, I'm an engineer and a sailor with the dream of fixing up this old boat to go sailing around the world someday. We've got a lot of work to do first. I think these will be okay there for now. So we're gonna start working on that cockpit sole and it looks like it's all screwed down, so let's go take a look. Well, now some of these are just spinning and I'm not really even sure what these are screwed into, if anything. Well, of course, some of them don't want to come up, but we have a tool for that. It's right here, and it's called an adjustable hammer. Let's see if this helps. Victory. Wow. Long way down. Wow, it is. It's another day here in the shed, and huge thanks to Jeff for helping to bust out all those screws and then remove all that teak from the cockpit sole. Of course, it's safety first here at the LFS boat shed, so before we demolished this part, we traced it onto some scrap plywood and beefed it up with a few 2x4s. So now I have something to walk on while we work on this, because I'm sure, like most things around here, this is going to take a bit longer than I thought. This thing is a beast. It's quite heavy. It came in at just a little over 53 pounds, and I'm pretty sure it's full of water. All right, correction, I know that it's full of water, and I can see there's at least a couple layers of plywood here when I look inside the hole for the pedestal. So my thinking now is, why not rebuild it while we have it out? Let's get it all dressed up with modern materials. We'll probably put some COOSA in here, or maybe some Divinycell foam, but we're gonna get it all waterproofed, rebuilt, back in shape, so stick around. So taking a look at the other side, we see here that there's a lot of insulation. There appears to be some sort of like a metallic insulation, that might even be lead, I don't really know. But I can see that the fiberglass from the bottom is just the usual chopped strand. There's a cutaway here, a relief in the plywood and the insulation, and that actually interfaces with some interior joiner work. So if we're rebuilding this and we're adding some thickness, we're gonna wanna make sure we take care of that, accommodate for that. There's some rubber or neoprene gasket material around the side to seal the hatch in place. I'm thinking, let's tear all this out. We can rebuild all of this. Let's get to work. Let's take a second to thank some of the new Patreon and YouTube members that help keep this channel floating along. Now, if you're interested in some extra updates and ad-free videos, you can check out the Patreon link below or hit that join button. Now, the folks whose names are appearing on the screen go the extra mile to keep this channel working, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you all so much. Now, back to the video. Plywood. My second greatest enemy, just after balsa. Well, I was thinking I would try to peel off the foam because I saw a screw over there and I thought, well, there's probably more. It's not coming out very easily, and I think since it's all pretty waterlogged and damaged anyways, we're just gonna try and pry it up. Might break some of the fiberglass and the screws on the underside. Shouldn't really make a big difference. That's got the plywood removed from this part, from the underside of the part, and most of it has ended up in little scraps on the ground. So I see a little bit of residue here from either some sort of mastic or polyurethane, I don't know what it is, but there's glued on a lot of it. And then the rubber gasket or neoprene, whatever this is quite stiff, and that might have hardened up over time. So we're gonna replace that. We'll get that removed, then we can start digging in to the core of this piece like we do up on the deck, dig out the old plywood, see what we've got. Let's keep going. I'm finding some cracks between the molded part and the skin that was laid over the top, and that probably helps to answer the question of why it's so wet inside. Back now, and it's a new day. Looks like we have plywood under here. That's what I'm seeing, some pucks sort of coming through the lower skin. Let's cut this thing open, try and peel that glass back, and see what we're dealing with on the inside here. Well, this seems to be a recurring theme in my life these days, turning old plywood into dust and debris. This is looking pretty good now. We've got all the wood out. It's ready to maybe dry out. We'll leave it outside for a couple of days here to see if we can get the moisture down. Some areas are really good. There's barely any moisture registering at all. Other areas are still showing pretty saturated. Well, this has definitely lost a lot of weight, and it's also lost a lot of its rigidity, which is no surprise. So keeping it flat and in good shape when we glue it back up is going to be important. So things to consider. If you are the type that reads the comments to these videos, you may have noticed some along the way that say, "John, you're never going sailing. You're going to be working on your boat until you're old and gray." And while there might be some truth to that, I really do enjoy the work that we're doing here and sharing it with all of you. So in a recent video, I remarked that maybe there were some areas where I could, take it easy a little bit. And then in my inbox, right away, I got an email from these guys here and said, "Hey, John, we saw what you're doing. We want to send you something that might give you a hand, and tell us what you think." So here we are, and I think I know what this is, but let's dig in and find out. Here we have Iceco's 79-quart dual-zone AC/DC electric cooler. Now think of this beast as an ice box, except you have the ice already built in. You don't need to change it or drain it. These use a true refrigerant compressor-driven system, and this has a German, almost silent C-Cop compressor with a 5-year warranty. We've got some LED lights in here to see what we're doing, and this one has 2 fully adjustable zones, which is great because it allows me to keep everything at the exact right temperature. So over here, of course, we have the beer going in, and then what else on the freezer side? The Frosty mug. This really isn't a review video where we're going to go through all the features and try everything out and all that. But what I do want to do is maybe just investigate if this makes sense to put something like this on Antidote instead of redoing the whole fridge box, which is going to be a major involved refit procedure. Something I still probably want to do, but does this get me on the water quicker? It's an interesting question. So I'm definitely going to plug this thing in, get it fired up. We'll try it out, maybe take it camping a few times, put it on the 30-foot boat that we have access to in Bellingham Bay, and just see how it does. But I'm curious to hear from you guys out there if you have experience with these type of products, if they could replace a actual in-boat fridge system, something in the galley in an old converted ice box. Thanks to IceCo for sending this over. Very interesting. We'll put it through its paces. Now I wanted to give you an update on that windlass from the last video. Before we put this thing down into storage for a little while, because it might not surprise you that we're not ready for it yet up on deck, I did get the parts to finish the manual retrieval handle. So as of right now, we just have these holes in the bottom that have a little bit of slag left in them from the zinc dip process. But these are the original steel pins that were in there, and they've rusted out quite a bit. And I was able to find some really nice stainless units. So we'll be putting these ones back in. So we'll clean up these holes, drill them out a little bit just so that these will press back in, press those in place, and voila, brand new 3/16 stainless pins in place of the old rusted steel. So now we can take this guy apart and show you how it works. I feel like this wasn't super clear in the last video, partly because that part was up in the shop already. I also forgot there's a spring in here that kind of keeps this cone elevated a little bit, so it is actually pretty easy to remove. And now, this should jump down the shaft here and engage those dogs. Boom, like that. And now we can drive the windlass manually. So we can improve what will likely be a very bad day. Slight improvement. And the handle now spins, which is really nice. There is one last thing we'll do with the windlass before we put it away. The original pawl here that grabs onto the gypsy and keeps it from spinning, locks it while you're at anchor. It's running a bit loose, and the original wave spring that supports that little pawl is broken, and we're going to be replacing it with this guy, which is like a multi-piece spring. So my thinking here was just to get one that has a bit more compression force. It's going to keep that thing from moving too much while it's in there. It's marketed as stainless steel, but I don't know. It doesn't quite look like it to me. We'll see how it does. Well, that is looking pretty good. I think we'll pack this all up now, put it down in storage for the time being until we're ready for it, and get back to work on that cockpit sole. Welcome back to the shop. It's a new day, and we are ready to start putting some material down on the bottom side of this cockpit sole. So it's been in the shop next door for a couple of weeks, drying out with the humidity set nice and low. And now we are registering nothing on the moisture meter. A couple of spots that were in the mid to high 20s, make them at beeping noise, are now showing 10 to 15%. And that's the limit of where I would like to be to start putting things back together. So we're gonna press ahead here. Now, the reason that I was able to park this for a couple of weeks was that I was actually away from the project. We were on the East Coast celebrating my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, as well as Bridget, my wife. She graduated from law school recently. So big round of applause. Thank you. And you can go ahead and leave a comment down below for any of those people to let them know that, hey, well done, 50 years of marriage, law school degree, all good stuff. But now we are back to work here. The plan now will be to install new core material. I'm thinking I'll use COOSA for this. And then we will, of course, finish wrapping the whole thing with glass. So we'll have a nice, solid panel, hopefully lighter than what we took out, and certainly more stiff with a lot less water in it. And hopefully no chance of water getting back in. So I will put a new glass skin on most of this. It will do two things. It'll add a little bit more stability to this top skin. As I sanded this, or used my grinder, my diamond grinder actually, to get this flat, it did take down a few spots to the roving. And so that means I've worn away some of the CSM. So I'm not sure if I've removed some thickness. I probably have. So we'll put one layer of 1708 over the whole thing just to make sure that it's nice and stable, super solid. And then I have a core schedule that I have planned, and then the bottom skin to go on top of that. Now there's a really cool program that I thought I would tell you guys about. Not sponsored, but there's a company called VectorPly, and they make a bunch of different glass and laminate materials. They have this really cool program called VectorLam. It's totally free. You just sign up to use it. and you can plug in your different laminate schedules and you can actually compare them. So I think this is a really great tool if you're going to be doing any composite work. It allows you to plug in all of your different glass laminates, the resins you're using, the orientations you'll use, and the core materials, and then you can compare. So I've been able to, for example, take what I believe was in here originally and compare it to what I plan to rebuild it with. I think what's happened here is that the original build did not include that extra layer of plywood on the top, and it was probably getting a bit waterlogged and getting a little bit squishy, and so they added that to help try to brace it. So what I'm going to do is design the laminate here with the core to be sufficiently stiffer and stronger than what the original probably would have been. I've also calculated that what I'm planning to do is as stiff or a little bit stiffer than most of the deck area, so should be totally great. I'll put a link down below if you want to check out their website. I really do recommend it if you're thinking about making any kind of laminates. It gives you kind of a really great A to B comparison. So we'll flip this over, cover all these holes with some tape so that the resin doesn't get through, put a new piece of glass on this, and then we'll check in. The following day now, and that layer of fiberglass has cured up nicely. Unfortunately, when I was pulling the peel ply off, I forgot to push the record button. So you'll just have to imagine that, and I'm really sorry. Hope you can forgive me for that. Next up, we are going to put in some COOSA bricks around the outside perimeter here. We're going to use a 1/2-inch product. I found a panel of blue water that was used for something else. So I'll buck this up into small pieces on the saw. I might need to use the sander a little bit to massage some of them around these weird edges that I wasn't able to sand out. So we'll get going on that now, see how it goes. Well, that was a bit of a tedious process getting all these blocks arranged and shaped to fit inside here nicely, but I think we've got it, so let's get that epoxy mixed up and glue these in. Now while this cures up, let's head back up to the cockpit to try to get an idea of the condition of those cockpit benches. Now you might be thinking, that was kind of a weird cut because you were just in the garage, now you're coming out of the boat, how does that work? Nobody knows. Don't worry about it, just go with it. We want to test the integrity of these pads underneath the cockpit seats that we'll be putting that permateak into eventually. Now all of these came out roughly around 15% when I test them, with the exception of one that tests almost at saturation. Now one of the first things I want to answer is there even core material in any of these structures? And I don't think there is along the Traveler. I was peeking in there the other day, it looks like it's solid. So I'm thinking this is probably all solid glass. Give me the old tap test, and all of these feel pretty good, even including the one that's pretty wet. When we tap on some of the really delaminated deck structures, it's a very different result. So if by chance there is core in here, it's definitely not delaminated. I just really think it's probably solid glass, and I'm wondering how I can draw some of that moisture out before we continue on. And one of the ideas that I have is to try to use vacuum to pull out any of that last bit of moisture. We're getting a bit of hot weather now, so it might work pretty well. Now all these screw holes that were holding the old teak pads down appear to be bottomed out. There's just one that goes all the way through. Now you're probably thinking, why don't you just check from below and see? But unfortunately in this little cubby, there's actually a liner under here, so I can't really see the underside of these pads. Well, why don't we give it a shot? Let's try and pull a vacuum on this one panel, see if we can remove that moisture, and we'll just plug up that one hole with a bit of vacuum tape, and we'll see if we can get a result. Well, we'll see how that works. We'll leave it to run for a little while. Right now we've got about 28 inches of vacuum. Not quite enough to get it to boil at room temperature, but it is a bit warm in here today, so perhaps we will be able to get some moisture boiled off. We'll let it run during the warmer parts of the day over the next few weeks and just see if it does anything. I plan to do a long-term review on the IceCo cooler once I've had more time with it to test it. And if you have any ideas for tests that you'd like to see done on this, maybe let me know down in the comments down below. Now my first impressions are that it's a pretty cool unit. It's got a lot of nice features. The build quality definitely exceeded my expectations. It's very hard to hear this thing running. In fact, it's going right now and it is whisper quiet. I could definitely see this living up in the forward stateroom of the boat. We'll see how well it holds up. Time will tell. Stick around for that. IceCo is offering any of the viewers of the channel a 12% discount code, which is pretty cool. So you can just type in LFS when you're checking out if you want to get one of their products. I think probably the most impressive thing about this cooler is that it just works. Lots more boat work coming up soon as we finish that cockpit sole and a bunch of other projects. So if you're new to the channel and you'd like to get caught up from the very beginning, there's a playlist for you right over there. And of course, you can always subscribe for more of these videos. Hit that button there. We'll see y'all next time. It's a new day and we are ready to start putting some material down on this one. Oh, that's really good. If you're in Northwest Washington, check out Mac and Jack's. It's delicious.